All right, folks. Hi, I'm Zed, and this is a podcast, right? Um, I decided that I want to tell stories. I love telling stories. I love hearing stories, and why not do a podcast? These could range from anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours. Who knows? But we're gonna have fun, and hopefully, my storytelling capabilities will keep you intrigued throughout. So, without any further ado, today I almost shit myself, and it's prompted me to tell the story of a time where I actually did. And listen, before we get into it, I'm not one for potty humor, especially like poop stories. I don't ever really find them too funny. This is not supposed to be inherently funny, but hopefully you get a chuckle out of it. But we're gonna try to tell some stories, and we'll eventually get to it. And by the time we actually get to the incident itself, maybe you'll learn a thing or two about Zed and his family. So basically, um, to to preface the actual story of Poop Myself, basically, I have a bad back, right? I've had a bad back for going on 5 years, or maybe it is 5 years now. Time flies when you do absolutely nothing for 5 years. Um, and I suppose I re-injured it back in maybe November, early December. I don't really know where to pinpoint where I kind of aggravated the injury again. But I did that, and thus it's been sucky these past couple of months, on and off again. But basically today, my grandparents decided that they wanted to rearrange um, the cabinet outside my room. Basically, there was this, little cabinet thing that sat outside my room, and there's a painting on the wall. And next to the cabinet, I had a big old stack of movies, three stacks of movies, that were either upgrades that or were movies that I ended up upgrading, or maybe the disc was scratched, missing a disc, maybe it was full screen. Maybe what? It's just movies I didn't want anymore, right? That's what we're trying to get at here. And they've been piling up outside my door, and they decided, look, we either got to donate these or throw them away or do whatever. But that they've been sitting out this door for and piling up for the past year. Okay, fine. I didn't really want to because my back was irritating me, but you know what? I'm not going to make my grandparents do it. It's not their mess. So I did it. Or I did it with their help. I don't want to lie to you. I did it with their help. So we started boxing up the movies, and I'd say there's probably about 100, 120, 30 movies, some TV box sets, what have you. Um, we started doing that. Cool. We get that all finished, and I'm laying here in my bed. And mind you, my bed, I need to get a new one. We've been meaning to get a new one since I was hospitalized. Hospitalized. What? That sounds too dramatic. I went to the ER back in early December before Christmas, and we've been meaning to get me a new mattress since then because of my back. Um, and I was laying here and I was like, man, just feeling sore, feeling blah. You know when you feel blah. So I got down on the floor, and I started doing some exercises, simple stuff that I learned over the years from YouTube or physical therapy, and it hit me. Ooh, my stomach's rumbling. Ooh, I'm getting the bubbles. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Whoa, we're getting a little bit of action down here, and I'm laying down there, and I kind of pause. I freeze. Like, if I move, if I do another crunch, or if I do another whatever. Am I going to shit myself on the floor here? And I'm like, okay. Stomach settles down. I get up and then I bolt towards the bathroom. I don't bolt. My back hurts. Gingerly waddled over to the bathroom, successfully making touchdown. All good. But, oh, hello, kitty cat. But, we have a little bit of a guest star here. But it was a close one, and it prompted me to tell this story. So, my family, on my mother's side, has owned this cabin. We call it the cottage. But we've owned this cottage on one of the Great Lakes here on Michigan since the summer of 1963. My great grandmother and my great grandfather bought the cabin, and we've owned it ever since. Now, this cabin is actually a part of several cabins on this thing we call the lane. And basically, what the lane is it used to be an old scout camp, Boy Scout, Girl Scout, what have you. It was this old scout camp back in the 40s and 50s. And it eventually closed, and these cabins went up for sale. And slowly but surely, the lane started getting bought out, and my grandparents bought, I believe it's either the third or the fourth house on the right side. So if you're driving down the lane, like if you come off the highway and you're driving down the lane, we are on the right side. So they got a good little chunk of property with it. We got this, little cabin. Again, it's like a little Boy Scout cabin. So imagine all those movies you used to watch about, kids that go to camp for the summer. It was sort of kind of like that. And my grandfather started doing restorations on this cabin in the early 80s. And he wanted to remodel it. He wanted to add additions to it. Additions like the ones he added to his home with his wife and kids. He wanted to, make it bigger, make it more lavish for what it was, because all the houses were, or all the little cabins were just basic little concrete boxes, basically. So he started doing remodeling and additions onto the cottage. And we can't really exactly pinpoint. I asked my grandpa, you can hear me with my sticky notes. I asked my grandpa, and he guesstimated, again, early 80s when my grandpa started doing these remodelings. And basically, what that meant was he added the living room. And the living room is this big old space, right? And the ceilings are, I don't know, 60 feet, 70 feet high. I'm not going to exactly get those measurements correct. I don't really know, but they're very high ceilings. And overlooking the living room is this little loft bedroom area. It's opened up to the actual living room, but it's high above. And there's a nice floating staircase going up. You know what a floating staircase is? Where you can actually see through the staircase. It's like little imagine like Flight of the Navigator. Remember that Disney movie where the spaceship, those little steps come out and they're kind of floating? It's kind of like that. They're a bit spooky. The stair steps. You always feel like like you're gonna fall through it, or they're gonna crack in half, something or other. But it's this beautiful loft area. It's definitely the place that I love sleeping at when I go up to the cottage. And and right below the loft area is my great grandparents' bedroom where they used to sleep. Now that they've both passed on, I was never fortunate enough to meet my grandpa, my great grandfather, but I visited my great grandmother every single day as she lived right next to me, right next door to me. Um, and yeah, we lost her about 3 years back, 3 or 4 years back. Anyway, right below the loft looking over the living room is my great grandparents' bedroom. It's a little, there's two twin beds, two twin closets, a little pull out bench sleeping area. It's a quaint little bedroom. Everyone really enjoys that room as it's very cozy. And then looking over, or not looking over, but above the kitchen area. So the kitchen is attached directly to the living room, and there's just this big open walkway where you walk in. There's a little catwalk leading into a little cubby hole, little crow's nest area, if you will, right above the entryway to the kitchen into the living room. It's a beautiful addition, and there's a fireplace in the living room. It's just big open space. The living room leads off to the back deck. Big glass windows and sliding glass doors. I mean, it's a beautiful little thing. And again, he started this in the early 80s. But my great grandfather would unfortunately pass away as I'm moving my ice pack. My great grandfather unfortunately passed away in early January of '86 from complications of his diabetes. My grandfather was very sick the last couple of years of his life, and around the early '90s, my great grandfather's second oldest, my great uncle, completed the restorations, completed the additions on the cottage, and we are forever grateful for that. With the guidance and the dream that my grandpa had, my uncle was able to complete his vision, and that's a beautiful thing. Um, so fast forward, I'm born in 1998, and since I was a very little kid, we'd go up to the cottage every year, right during the summertime. Now, I have a fairly large family. There are My great grandparents had four children, and those children had children, and then obviously those children have eventually had children now, which are us. Does that make sense? Probably not, but here we go. So basically, we would go up there to this cottage every year since I was a little baby. I had my first beer up there when my parents were still together, so I was probably around 1.5 years old. We went up there, and my father and I were sitting on the stair steps of the deck. I was probably sitting in his lap, or maybe I was like sitting on the stairs, playing, crawling up and down the stairs. He was drinking a beer. It's the summertime. He's enjoying himself. My grandmother and my older sister were playing checkers on the little, what's it called, the picnic table that sat out front, and everyone's just having a good time. Well, my dad gets up probably to take a leak, or maybe get himself a bowl of chips. Who knows? It's the summertime. He gets up, and he leaves the beer on the deck. Well, he comes back, and I'm just having a good old time, and he goes to pick up his beer, and he realizes that it is empty, and it was not knocked over. There was no puddle of beer, and he smelled my breath. He smelled my breath, and little baby Zed got a tummy full of probably Bud Light, maybe a Miller's. Who's to say? But I definitely chugged that beer while he was gone. I don't know how much was in there. Maybe half a beer, maybe less. The story always differs depending on who tells it and when they tell it, and over the years. But that so I had my first beer up there when I was like 1.5, 2 years old. Went up there a lot. Um, my family started this thing called Cousins Weekend. So, like I said, my great grandparents, the matriarchs of the family, Is the matriarch my grandmother, or are they both considered matriarchs? That's a very interesting question, one that I'm not inclined to answer because I don't know the answer. Um, but basically, cousins weekend. My great grandparents had 4 kids, and those are all like that's my grandpa, that's my great uncle who finished the cottage, and then my 2 great aunts. Well, all their kids and all their kids' were all cousins. And so Cousins Weekend is when all of the third generation, the third and fourth generations, would get together and we'd all go up north for an extended weekend. We'd probably all end up there on a Wednesday and maybe leave on a Sunday or a Monday. Sometimes it would be a full week. As a kid, it felt like a lifetime. It was amazing. But during Cousins Weekend, we were all up there, right? And there was probably the clan consisted of about 25 people, including the kids, right? Kids and adults. It was a stacked house. It was a stack. Everyone was sleeping everywhere. There were blow up mattresses in the living room. People were sleeping on the couches. All the beds. There were 2 sets of bunk beds. People were up in the loft. Folks would throw a mattress in the little crow's nest area. People were sleeping everywhere. And it was a great time, and we did that for several years. Unfortunately, those times came to an end during my early, I would say teenage years. I was probably around 13, 14 when those times ended, but we did it for several years. And during one of those trips, I would say I was probably, how old was Zed? Zed was probably about between the ages of 11 and 13. I don't really remember the exact age. Most folks probably would because it would be a traumatizing experience. But for me, we got a good laugh out of it. So basically, like I said at the beginning, we have a good little chunk of property. So our cottage is situated at the back of the lane, and we have this big old great yard where my great grandfather used to have his beautiful vegetable garden. There's a horseshoe pit. Folks bring up their boats and park it up towards the bank, which the bank would be where our yard meets the actual beach. I mean, when we say we're beachfront, we mean it. I mean, people are like, "Oh yeah, we're beachfront. We're in walking distance." No, 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 baby, baby. The beach is in our yard. You know, we have this good chunk of yard, and then it goes like there's a little hill area that goes up, and then it meets into the actual sand, and then you walk down the little sand hill. You're at the beach, baby. It's a 35-second walk, probably a little bit longer than that, but 35-second run. As kids, we would get down there in 7 seconds flat. We were booking it. Those pine cones and acorns did not stop us. We had little calloused feet. If we got a pine needle stuck in it, we'd pick it out at the beach. Like we're not going to stop for anything. So we have a good little plot of beach there. Obviously, it's always changing throughout the year. When the tide comes in or tide pulls out, we lose some beach, we gain some beach. But we have a beautiful little beach area there. We don't own any of the beach because you can't own beach here in Michigan. So the beach is just public. Um, I suppose. I mean, nobody's ever just like pulled off and used our beach. It's usually contained to the folks that live on the lane. Anyway, so when you get to the actual beach, right off to your left, if you're looking at the lake, there's a little thing that we call the creek. Now the creek is basically this pond, this sitting water. It's brown, it's mucky, it's full of tadpoles, little fish, and as the tide comes and goes, it gets connected to the actual body of water, the actual lake itself. But us kids would go play in the creek. You could throw a canoe in there, maybe a little dinghy, and you can float around, and the creek does go up into an actual little creek, a little river, and it's a good time. And past the creek, and you go down the beach. Um, there's this thing we call the point, and the point is just a name that we all came up with over the years, right? I mean, who knows where it came from? But basically, think of our beach almost like a square, right? And at the far point of on our left, the far point on our left, it basically angles off like a square, and it squares off. Well, that angle, that little point there, goes out, and there's this giant rock. What would you call it? Plateau? It's just a bunch of rocks. Big rocks, little rocks. I mean, if you walk out far enough, you got rocks the size of your garage, or maybe, your house. I mean, you got massive rocks out there. I mean, I'm not joking. Big, big rocks. But we would go out there, and we would find little fossils, little Petoskey stones, what have you. And that's what we did. That's what we enjoyed doing. And we would walk down there. Sometimes we'd have our water shoes on. Sometimes, like I said, we're ballsy. We were kids. We would just walk out there with our bare feet, and our feet would be super sore the next day. But we had a good time. But that right there is a good walk. There and back, you're probably gonna walk. I don't know, 3/4 of a mile. So, we used to take that walk a couple times a day, just walking up and down the beach. Well, the adults were drinking. We probably just got done having lunch. We were chilling down at the beach, and a group of us decided that we were gonna walk down to the point. We do this all the time. It's a routine mission, people. It's a routine mission. So I had all my cousins there. There's probably three of us at the time. No, yeah, three of us, because there's some of us that were not born yet. And then we had the adults. We had some of the parents. Some of my aunts and uncles. My mom was definitely there, and we started walking towards the point. And everyone's laughing, drinking, having a good time. The kids are playing in the water as we get there, and we get there, and we, you know, probably pick up some rocks and throw them out in the water, and what have you. We do our thing. Let's take a little sip of water real quick. Hydration, people. So we get there, and we decide it's time to go back. So we start moving our way back. And like I said, the kids are playing in the water. The adults are walking on the beach. Maybe they're getting their feet wet. They're walking where the waves, crash in, not crashing, but you know what I mean, where the waves come up. And the kids usually kind of just like crawl through the water, and they're splashing, playing, what have you. So we're crawling, on our like army style in the water. We're walking, and we're having a good time. And then all of a sudden, my stomach starts hurting. Ooh, this is not good. We are quite a ways out. Like I said, we have a good chunk of yard. We have the whole sand hill. We have, we have a good chunk to walk left. We probably have about, 6, 7 minutes of a walk left. Well, I don't think this is gonna wait for 6 to 7 minutes. I think this is going to be, a minute and a half, bet here. We got to do something. So I start treading water a bit faster, right? Like I'm starting to pick up the pace, and my mom and some of the adults are asking, what's wrong? why all of a sudden are you Michael Phelps in it over there? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Your stroll has turned into a bit of a jog. And I said, I got to use the bathroom. Whatever. They didn't think much of it. Oh, he has to use the bathroom. He's picking up the speed. The kid has to go. And they're like, well, if you have to go pee, just stop and pee in the bush. Like there was bushes and dead grass and all that kind of stuff off the side. Just, we'll walk ahead. You just stay behind and pee. And I'm like, well, that's going to be a bit of a problem because it's definitely not a code yellow. So I start running, and if you've ever had a close call, you would know that you don't want to run, you don't want to jog, you don't even really want to fast walk because every single movement you make, that's a close call. It's a judgment call. Like you're like, oh man, maybe this is a crouch down in the water type situation. Sometimes if we're out on the boat in the middle of the lake, and we got a a code 2, you step off the ladder and you let it go, and you splash some water up there like a makeshift what are those things called? The things that spray your butt. We'll call it a makeshift wet wipe. And you figure your stuff out, and does it float? Oh yeah, it floats. It's a bit embarrassing, but it's less embarrassing than having a log in your trousers, right? So basically, I'm running now at this point, and I'm trying to get up to the beach, and you know things are happening in the short region. The gopher is poking its head out looking for its shadow, and that's an unfortunate thing right there, because as a kid, you don't know what to do. Do you start digging a hole? Do you run into the water? Do you try to find a tree? Like what leaves do you wipe with? Like, we know we got poison oak out here. We definitely have some stuff that can give you some rashes. And so basically, I get to the sand hill that we walk up. There's a little like wooden bridge that we made over the years that goes over this little, it's just like sitting water basically, like from rainfall and what have you. It's just really warm, mucky, smelly water, and we built this little driftwood bridge. So we get to that, or I get to that. The people are still, having a ginger stroll. And when you're at the grocery store and you're like, "Oh, I have to pee, I'll hold it." And then you unpack your groceries and you're like, "Oh, okay." So you get in your car and you're like, "Oh, okay." Like we're okay still, but I'm going to have to, I might have to run a red light. Let's hope there's not a lot of traffic. And then the closer you get to your house, the more your body's like, it's go time, baby. So when I made it to the wood bridge, my body was like, we're close enough. And as I'm running up the sand hill, touchdown, I drop a turd, a log, into the butt of my shorts. And I'm wearing swim shorts, right? So I'm just lucky that the shorts weren't stuck to me somewhere. When you get out of the water and then people can see the outline of your penis because the goddamn thing suction cups to your junk, suction cups up to your asshole. I'm just lucky, my shorts were loose fitting, and the turd rolled out down my pant leg and made touchdown like I was a kitty cat in a litter box, right in the sand, right at the top of the hill. Nobody saw it. People were still pretty far out. That's traumatizing. What do you do, people? What's the first thing you think? I'll tell you what I thought. I gotta bury it. I got to bury this thing. I can't let the folks see it. I can't pick it up because there's people inside of the cottage. I can't walk in with a turd in my hand. I don't want to touch it because I also don't want to pick it up and throw it somewhere. I don't want to throw it behind a tree. I don't want to throw it into the woods. So what do? I buried it. I just took a bunch of sand and started piling on top, burying my turd. I then decided that that's enough. I hope that the heavy-footed adults don't find it on their way back, but I still have a job to finish. You know, I'm not one of those folks that's a log, like a one log kind of situation. I usually have multiple touchdowns to make. I have multiple missions. So I run into the cottage. I get to the bathroom. I'm sopping wet, baby. I'm sopping wet. You know, I had to wash off my feet. We have these little plastic containers that we wash our feet off in. I'm soaking. I have no time to dry my feet. I'm slipping and sliding on the goddamn tile in the kitchen. But I make it into the bathroom. I make it into the bathroom. Luckily, there was no chocolate stamps in my shorts. There was nothing. There was no streaks down my leg. I finished my business. I got back down to the beach. I called my mother over. I told her what had happened. She got a huge laugh out of it. We proceeded to tell all of the adults. And, you know, I believe one of them even said, well, where is it? We should probably move it. And I was like, well, it's around here. And we kind of like got a shovel. We were going to move. We never found the turd, people. It was a treasure hunt we could never fulfill. There was no map to it. You know, it was a split-second decision. I just started piling sand. It could have been really anywhere on that hill. But nobody ever found it. And I think I'm okay with that, right? I think that would have been more traumatizing if, you know, my uncle would have got the shovel out and proceeded to excavate my excrement and move it somewhere else, like behind the tree or somewhere. So that is the story of how I actually did shit myself. And I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got some type of entertainment out of that. I hope my story suffices, and it filled some time for you. But I think that's where I'm going to end it. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you all enjoyed. And until next time, guys, I'll be talking to you when I talk to you. Peace.